Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining me again tonight. I'm bringing you a new Hilt review. This is the Dave P V2 from the RPF run that he just did. I just received this Hilt yesterday on January 5th. This thing got shipped out the end of November. I want to say like November 29th from the UK. It took a long time to get to me. I think this thing got stuck in a warehouse in Kentucky before it finally made its way here. But I finally have it, and I've looked it over a little bit. And I just kind of wanted to go over some of the things about this hilt. I do love my Luke Return of the Jedi hilts. For most of you people that follow me, you guys know that. I have a couple of V2s over here that are completed that I will show off in a little bit, but I kind of wanted to go over this. So Dave P, for those who don't know, has over the last year or so put out a couple of hilts. He did a Yuma run and I believe a Hero back in, I want to say 2019, 2020, I think, or even early 2021 that came out. And then finally, like in early July, he put out this big research thread on the V2. Pretty much every reference that he has that he was using to make this, he put that out there. I really respect and like when the creators of these runs and these hilts put these big information or research threads out there, so you can kind of see like where they're getting all of this from. Dave did that with his Yuma and his Hero, similar to what the mom did with their Hero and what Anakin Starkiller has done before with his V2 run and his Hero run that he did. I just respect those guys a lot more when you start to see some of these references that you're using and you can understand where they're going with the hilt and where they're getting their ideas from. I think that Dave has put a ton of research into this. If you go onto the RPF and you check out that thread, it's long, it's very in depth, a lot of pictures, some great overlays, some internal looks and thoughts about how the motor may have worked inside this thing. And for a while, I didn't know if I was going to get this. I knew of two other V2s that were going to be coming out, and to add a third to my list, I really wasn't sure about it. But a lot of people were telling me that this is a really good-looking hilt. I kept looking over the thread more and more, and then finally, I decided to pull the trigger on it. Dave actually had quite a few offerings on his run. You could get just the base hilt, which is what I did here. You could get a hilt with a motor put in so that it acts like the stunt that Obi-Wan had, or that I should say that Alec Guinness used in A New Hope. You can get one with damage, pommel damage, emitter damage. There was stencil work that was also going to be done as well if you wanted it finished off. There were, I think, even replica pieces that he was trying to sell, and also I think he even had a run of boot studs, so like the real vintage boot studs from the waiters that I think they might have ran out early, but he did have those to offer for the first number of people that actually were that signed up, first come first serve. But it's such an interesting hilt just looking at it coming out of the box. Everything was all together as this. I didn't have to do a thing. And what's really great about this hilt is that it is one giant piece. The only thing that comes off is the pommel. There's no threads on this whatsoever. It's a heavy hilt because it actually has a nice rod going through here. I'll show that off in a second. Nice large pommel holes. Let's see if we can get all this in here on the camera. All right, so this right here is for your mystery chunk, or now we know boot stud. This right here is for your cone knob, and notice that the hole is very wide. That's because on a real vintage cone knob, it has a very large threading on the bottom of it, so if you're using a set screw on it, it is going to be quite large. So I like that Dave did that. He took, and you can look in his thread and see he did overlays with a vintage cone knob, and was able to replicate that here, so it should be able to screw right in. Like that a lot. And also here, the set screw that keeps the booster in. Again, the pommel, and the pommel again is it is not threaded. This is held together just by this set screw here. Going over the pommel. It's a heavy pommel too. It's a solid pommel. There's just a small amount of space at the very top here, just to allow the rod to kind of sit in it a little bit. But other than that, I would say probably from like here down, it's solid. The hilt itself is very, very smooth. It's well machined. Whoever Dave used to machine these, they did a fantastic job. Nice and clean. So you can see here. Now, I know these guys put out their renderings and they get a prototype and then it goes back to the machinist. And I always wonder after the fact how different the prototype was from the batch that everybody gets. Because sometimes there are slight little changes. And I wonder, I would love to hear the thoughts on from Dave or anyone else when they do their runs, how different if the hilt is slightly different than what they actually sent in from their prototypes. So here are the rings here, right? A lot uneven spacing a little bit. So I think the rings are nice. I mean, these guys are nice and smooth. I think these look a little different. I feel like this one is supposed to be thicker and this one's supposed to be a little thinner. But it's a nice hilt so far. The emitter looks great. All right, so you can see the little nipple that's coming out here. This is the end of the steel rod, okay, that's being held in place. I'll show that off in a minute. The neck is one solid piece. So like I said, this thing is this is not this cap does not screw off. This is not a spinning emitter. This is one solid piece from the emitter all the way down through the booster. Okay. Now let me take off this set screw here. Okay, so you can see. If I can get a good shot at this. Sorry, the chandelier is kind of shining in there. But I mean, this is a pretty solid pommel. It's got a really nice weight to it. Okay. I didn't get any type of damage or anything like that. I did plan on sending this to our good buddy Hallowax to get this finished off at some point. Keep him busy, always back in the shed. Oh, and you know what? That was silly of me. I shouldn't have even done that. This way you guys can see the inside. Now, this is not something that's made for FX. Although I'm sure if you want to try to get crazy, I'm sure somebody could attempt it, but I don't think I would. It's very, very narrow on the inside. Okay, so there's the rod that runs all the way through. Okay, there's not a lot of room in here, but if there's enough room to do the motor, that's just like what was going on with the shared stunt with Alec Guinness and A New Hope. Okay, now the theory that I'm hearing now is that everyone for a long time thought that the emitter spun, and that the emitter itself. That this was all really one solid piece. So there is a theory out there now that it was one solid piece, and really what spun was in here. That's why you can actually see there is the nipple itself will actually come out. I will take this out in a second, and this piece spun, but the emitter itself was solid through the entire through the shaft of the whole hilt. But what ended up happening is that at some point in time this must have been dropped, or somehow it broke and this snapped, and then that allowed the emitter to actually start to spin around, and it looked like as if it was two pieces, and that's when they used the gaffer's tape to hold it down. There is some photo evidence out there that's been brought to my attention that actually kind of shows that. So that does sound like a pretty solid theory at this point in time. I know some people still doubt it and they think that it is two separate pieces. Of course, now it's two separate pieces because it's actually broke. But when they were originally filming, when it started, there is that theory that it was originally one piece. But by the time you got to Return of the Jedi, and even there's, I think, even a photo of Empire Strikes Back where there is gaffer's tape around the neck. So then you could tell at that point in time that it was broke at that point in time. All right, let's see if we can get this off of here. Oh, that is the wrong one. Oh, there it is. It's coming right out. Okay, so here's our rod. The little bearing in there. Oh, little set screw there. You have a bearing in there, if you can see that. There it is, down the shaft. All right, and then I'm going to show you the other one where the nipple is here. These are long set screws. They don't screw into the nipple though. They only screw, they're only used as a set screw just to hold it in. You should be able to take this out. Okay, so here's our nipple here. And this is inside. So again, you can see there's another bearing in here. Again, there's really no way to make this, like I said, if somebody wanted to go crazy and really try to squeeze in an FX in this, you could, but there's no blade depth. If you're going to actually turn this thing using NeoPixel, there's no way that you'd want to do that. And this thing is nice and tight as it goes in. There we go. Now, before I get people screaming at me like, oh, no, about the emitter, that's not real, that's not true, that's not true. Well, new stuff I feel like comes out all the time. There's newer photos. Geez, just when the 4K came out, there was actually, you were able to see a heck of a lot more than you have in the past on some of these, on other references that we've had in the past. So, I don't know. You know, I have other people that are experts that know a heck of a lot more about this thing than I do. And I kind of take them at their word because I feel like they know what they're talking about more than me. All right, and that pretty much holds in place. Now, for those people, I think there's a bunch of people right now that are waiting on their commissions from Dave, whether it's getting weathered, whether they're getting the dented emitter, the five dents that are supposed to be in the emitter, the marking up of the pommel, the weathering, or the full-on motorized stunt. I think you guys are going to be pretty pleased with the product that you guys get. I think overall this is a really, really nice hilt. You know, size-wise, if we want to compare it to two other studs that we've had in the past. So this is the Anakin Star Killer. This is from the 2018 first FX run. And this is the Solos Hold Gen 2. These guys are fully decked out. If you've seen my video before about these guys, these were fully weathered by our guy Halowax. These guys are sporting, they're pretty much all vintage. This, my Anakin Star Killer, is completely vintage cone knob, boot stud, vintage clamp, vintage D-ring. For the most part, the Solos Hold is also pretty much all vintage. I have their cone knob on here, and I have a reproduction stud on this one, but I do have some vintage products downstairs that I'm waiting on that I might be using on this one, and then also a couple of other V2s that I'll be talking about in a minute. Size-wise, you can get a good idea of what we're looking at here right now. As you can see, the Solos Hold is slightly taller than both of these guys. I would say the Dave P is a lot closer to the Star Killer. But you can look here and you can see the differences in their boosters. And then in the ring section, see where these guys are coming up against one another. I'll try to get these guys even a little bit closer. So you can see even too, like the cubes are a little different. They look just slightly smaller than the Star Killer and the Solo's Hold, the Gen 2. Booster section looks to be a little bit longer in the Gen 2. And even the Star Killer booster looks to be a little bit more than this. Dave's got a nice downstep here almost from the bottom ring going over the clamp section. And it's definitely pronounced. That's deep. That's more pronounced than I've seen before. So again, a lot of these newer photos that could be coming out there that could show that. So that's a possibility. The necks all look pretty decent. And I love how the nipples are really close on all of these. Slightly different, but still pretty darn good. But yeah, like these guys here, these guys spin. Well, my Star Killer spins really well. The Gen 2 Solo's Hold is kind of locked in with the gaffer's tape. That one's actually on pretty tight. But this one has nothing in it. The Gen 2. This is basically just made for show at this point in time. Nice and light. Where the Star Killer actually also has a rod going through it. When Halowax did it, he put a nice rod going all the way through. This thing is really, really solid the way that it's built. And I'll tell you what, like, this doesn't even have all of the parts on yet. Like, this doesn't have the clamp or anything. And this is heavier. I would say this feels heavier than my Star Killer. Not by much. But I bet you when this has the clamp on and everything else, I bet you this will be even heavier than this guy. But this feels just as heavy, if not heavier, like this. So it's definitely a really solid hilt. So I just wanted to kind of bring those out to compare, because everyone's always asking me, how does it compare to this hilt, how does it compare to this V2 and this V2, because the Solo's Hold and the Anakin Star Killer have been the gold standards for a number of years since they've come out. And now we've got multiple V2s coming out right now. We've got Dave Pease is the first to really kind of to come out there. I know we've had ones over the last couple of years. Roman's did I think a steel one, and that one I think is supposed to be like the heaviest from what people tell me. I don't have that one. Roman always puts out stuff of great quality, and I think people were very happy with that V2 that got it. As far as I know, I'm pretty sure that was an FX hilt, but it was a solid steel hilt. I know KR put one out recently. He put a V2 out that people like, or it might have even been like an Echo V2 that people were happy with. And again, that was for FX. This is really a static hilt, almost made as it first was conceived after the shared stunt. And it being really one piece, this is one of the first ones that it's been solid from, or I should say that it's one piece from the emitter all the way down through the booster. Most of them either like unscrew at the grenade section. The Solo's Hold Gen 2 and the Star Killer had like this J-locking system that it would kind of come apart from the middle, and it would like twist and then come apart instead of having it threaded. But this this was really well done. I'm kind of glad that he made it one solid piece. But kind of again, that replicates more what we I think know at this point for the most part of the V2 when it was actually used on screen. So Dave did a really good job with this. There are a lot of options that he gave people for his run. He does, I think, these smaller runs because I think they're a lot more manageable. So I think he gives people kind of like what they want within a decent time frame, so people aren't waiting too long. Going back to what I was saying before, there are a couple of other V2s that are going to be coming out soon, and One is by Veracity Labs with Brian and Adam. Those guys are putting out a V2 that they've been having their own. Um, I think they've had their own thread with as well, very similar to what they did with the hero that they like they did with the mom. So those guys are coming out with theirs, and probably I think Brian just put out an update on it, something like, but hopefully by like the end of the year. Just I know with COVID slowed a lot of stuff down for those guys, and I'm always asking them a bunch of questions, but I feel like that one's they're saying hopefully by the end of this year. So keep an eye out for that. And we just got a great announcement the other day, right around New Year's, that both Starkiller and Haloax are doing a collaboration on a V2. And again, that one sounds the Veracity Labs one. They're doing like that one that they're coming out with initially is going to be an FX. There might be a static later down the line, but definitely FX they're going with first. And for Dan and for Starkiller and Haloax, those guys are doing. I believe it can be done with FX. I'm pretty sure about that, but also like they're really looking to do like these motorized stunts, again mimicking the original design of it for New Hope, using it with Alec Guinness. I get a lot of questions about what's the most accurate, and there was a great post today actually on the Luke Return of the Jedi lightsaber page, and there's basically a poll up there right now about like which one would you get, which is most accurate. And Brian from Veracity Labs actually threw this great post out, and I think it bears repeating. And it's we're getting to the point now with reference photos and 4K resolution that these people are putting out. So for this instance, you got someone like Dave P. You've got Veracity Labs, guys like Brian and Adam, and then you have Starkiller and Haloax. All these three entities have done amazing research, and they put that out there and they show you that. And I think from there you can see how well detailed all of these hilts are, and you're getting to within millimeters, fractions of millimeters of a difference between these hilts. So some of it's going to come down to perspective, point of view, and what these people see when they look at some of these photos. What's the lighting like? Is the lighting doing, can that be a trick of the eye? They have these unbelievable overlays that look like everything lines up perfectly. So you trust that. And I think these guys, they're all pushing each other to make something better. And I think that's great. And these guys have done a lot, I think, for the community over the last few years. They're all very knowledgeable people. So for us to really come out and say which one is more accurate, I don't know if you're really going to get a good answer, because I really don't think there is one. I think they're all really accurate hilts that are going to be coming out. Dave's got a nice one here, and like I said, I think the other two that are going to be coming out are going to be making those hilts themselves. I think you can see just from the pictures. I think you saw the prototype that Haloax put out there. Veracity Labs has theirs that they're putting out, which again, the photos that you've seen from that again look pretty darn good. So to say that one's more accurate than the other, I think defeats the purpose at this point in time. I put something out there as a post where, if you're comparing a Gen 1 Solos hold or a 2015 Starkiller to some of the ones that are coming out, to either Dave's or to the next generation that's coming out in 2022, I think you're going to see some major differences. But, until somebody actually takes the real thing that Brandon has and traces that thing and gets calipers to it to actually measure everything, I don't know if you're going to get a 100% accurate. I think it's what these guys are putting out. It's some of the best that you're going to get. And then from there, it's how do you want to do your weathering? What parts do you want to put on there? What vintage parts? What replica parts do you want to put on there? Because even the replica parts have been getting better over these last few years. We didn't have them as accurate as we did, especially with these found parts that people have been able to finding the boot stud, figuring out where the cone knob came from, and getting an exact one to reproduce there. I think all of that matters too, and how you want to design your V2, because the V2 is a special hilt. A lot of people love this hilt. It's really considered as Dave put on his thread, the unofficial hero, since it has so much screen time. And people are pretty passionate about this thing, and they should be. I think it's a great hilt. It's definitely, I love all of Luke's hilts, but the hero and now the V2 really have the V2 has climbed so much up in my rankings. It's amazing how fast that happened, and I think a lot of it is just the passion has rubbed off onto me from other people that I've just talked with. Halifax being one of them, Brian being another, and even Starkiller when he put this one out in 2018. And I think that's when I really started to really enjoy that hilt and respect it for what it is and the history that it has throughout the films. So, I mean, if you're looking for a V2 coming this year, I don't think you're gonna. It's not gonna be for lack of wanting, because you're gonna have your fill. If you can find one for Dave's, and it all depends on what you're looking for. Like, are you looking for a full out FX hilt that you want to build? Then you're probably gonna go Veracity Labs. If you want the option of doing motorized stunts or an FX, then you may be looking at more of the Starkiller and Halifax crossover. If you're looking more for just either a static or a stunt, then Dave P's might be the way that you want to go. So again, it's also what you want out of that hilt too. Don't just, I have these two hilts here that are both empty. These guys are pretty much both static for me, but these were FX hilts, but I didn't want to put the electronics in them. Part of the reason was because I wasn't a huge fan of the J-lock, because it felt like it was too easy to come apart, and I didn't like that as much. So I just figured, let me just leave these guys, and I figured at some point in time somebody was going to make an FX hilt, which is one of the reasons why I am going to get the Veracity Labs one, and I'm also planning on getting the Starkiller Halifax one, because one, I've pretty much gotten all of Starkiller's hilts, and the fact that he's collaborating with Halifax and he's a V2 expert, I want to grab that one as well. And I might do a motorized stunt in that one that'll mimic the New Hope film. So everyone's kind of got their bag and what they want in it. So pick and choose wisely, but I feel like you're gonna have you have options out there. And I think that's the best thing. It's not just like one group that's making it. So that's my little discussion. That's my review. Again, I think Dave's done a really good job. I'm going to probably end up sending this out to Halifax for him to weather up for me, because he does such a fantastic job. I believe Adam Wells is doing a lot of weathering as well for Dave P's hilts, if I'm not mistaken, because I think they're both over in the UK. So Adam does some great work as well. You can see a lot of that on the Facebook pages. He usually posts a lot of pictures, or people that get their work back from him usually do as well. So with that, I am going to sign off, but just like always, if you guys have any questions, please leave them down below. I will try and do my best to answer those questions. If you are looking, I don't know if Dave has any left at this point in time, because this run, I think, was done and sold out. But you could always reach out to Dave over on the RPF and see if he has anything left. This also says it's DaveParkinart.com. So that's his website. But if you are interested in this, I'm sure if you hit up the Lightsaber pages, or if you reach out to Dave, you might have a shot at grabbing one or getting one if anyone decides to sell theirs off. So with that, guys, I'm going to be signing off, and we'll talk with everybody soon. I've been away for a while, but I've got some installs coming up that I will be doing soon. I actually just redid my Solos Hold the Rebel Orphan. I gutted the whole thing from the Tri-Cree, and I put NeoPixel in there, redid my switches, redid my crystal chamber a little bit, did a NeoPixel dot in there for my crystal chamber. So pretty happy with how that came out. Redid a couple of my MHS hilts to NeoPixel from Tri-Cree. And the next big install that I really want to do is going to be the Mom Hero. Once those crystal chambers start going out, I got a chassis coming in, and then I could start putting all that guy together. I can't wait for that to be finished off. So, guys, take care, stay safe. Talk to you soon.